Welcome to the Cleveland Orchestra's On a Personal Note, where we explore the many ways music shapes our lives. In difficult situations or moments of sheer joy, music connects us with our humanity. Legendary rock star and composer Stewart Copeland is the founder of one of rock's most beloved bands, The Police. His journey from rock music icon to film music icon, his orchestral compositions, opera work, and recent performances all add up to a fascinating, important, and well-documented life in music. Here, he talks to us about the underlying passion and drive that connects these diverse pursuits, and what he has in store for audiences of Stewart Copeland's Police Deranged for Orchestra.
So first thing, Stewart, I'd like to hear just a little bit for our true classic rock fans about kind of what you think is the legacy of the Police in 2021. What it's like that new audiences continue to discover amazing Police music, and just get a little sense in your own words how you think this continues to evolve.
Well, the first word that comes to mind about the Police legacy is surprising. And the reason, well, we're all surprised. And not only am I surprised, but, the Beatles, the Stones, and everybody else is also surprised. Because our generation of musician grew up with no cultural overlap with our parents' culture and music at all. My dad listened to big band jazz with trumpets and saxophones and stuff. As soon as I heard Jimi Hendrix, I never listened to another saxophone ever. And so we did not, our generation, listen to our parents' music. And also, we all, even up until, decades after the Stones and the Beatles, we expected our music to be immediately expendable. None of us made this music expecting it to last. You got your Wagner and your Brahms, you expect that to last, but not a pop song that's on the radio this week and forgotten next week. So the main thing, the Police legacy was not supposed to be a legacy. And yet, kids these days like the old school stuff. My dad raised me to be a jazz drummer in a big band jazz outfit. But meanwhile, my mother was listening to Debussy and Ravel and Stravinsky, and that stuck. So as a teenager, and that was all doing fine. But then when I heard Jimi Hendrix, when that happened, just blew everything out of the water. It blew the saxophones and trumpets out of the water, but the Ravel and Stravinsky stuck. And as I'm a 16-year-old adolescent with visions of glory, walking down the street, while walking, the music's thundering in my head. And on this ear, I got, wow, with, 4 double Marshall stacks. In the other ear, I've got junk, 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 junk. And the two have always been fused in my brain. The power that you can get with a big orchestra, with the fundamental aspects of the rebellion, of the wild, exuberance of rock and roll. They've always been there. Never crossed my mind during the Police years that I could do both at the same time, until, I guess, from the Police derived the privilege to do exactly that, which is do both at the same time.
How do you feel that rock and classical mesh? What magic comes out of jamming those two genres together in a way?
Before the band broke up, I got my first job as a film composer for Francis Ford Coppola on a film called Rumblefish. And I had never thought about a career in film composing, although I'd always responded emotionally to film music. He looks for artists and gives them a lot of leash. And I had no idea how to score a movie, but he told me what he needed. And then he turned me loose. And I had my xylophones and my drums and my crotales and my sort of room temperature guitar playing, banjo too. And I made these tracks. And he said, great, 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 great. He came down, checked it out. He said, okay, great, I promote you to sergeant. which was a big honor for me as as a novice film composer, wannabe. But he said, but just one thing, we need strings. Strings, okay, sure. Francis, when you're right, you're right. And so, yep, string, gotcha, on it, strings. So I call up the contractor. I said, I need strings. Okay, how many? I don't know, strings, more than one, lots. They show up, maybe 16 players, I forget what the lineup was, but a room full of players. Instead of, usually you book a guitarist, and he comes down with cartage, and he's got 3 Les Pauls, 2 Stratocasters, and an SG, and then some guitar you never heard of, which is his favorite. And you go through it. Okay, here I need a little bit kind of a groove, and then when it goes, see, when she looks over at him, I need a little bit of a love chord there, stuff. And guitars, and you spend a wonderful creative afternoon on this exercise. Okay, the strings come over, and I'm expecting sort of the same exercise. Okay, guys, we got this girl, and she looks over at him, and when we meet it again, and then it kind of goes out and it trails out, and just kind of keep the groove going there. And I'm talking, and instead of them becoming more and more excited, like a guitarist would, they're getting kind of more anxious. And eventually, one of them, the concert master, I guess, even though there's only 16 of them, okay, maestro, do you want us to play what's on the page here, or whatever the heck you're talking about? Okay, play the page. Yeah, okay, a couple things. First of all, they played the page in about 20 minutes, and my afternoon of interacting creatively with these 16 musicians was not to be, because you put it on the page, that's what they play. No hyping, backstory, story, nothing, bonding, none of that. You put it on the page, and that's what they play. And so they were done really quickly. Wow, that's efficient. But the other thing that struck me was, gosh, that's really pretty. Wow, you mean you can get all that, all you got to do is homework, and I don't need to be talking to the guitarist and laughing at all his jokes and admiring his 3 SGs or whatever. You just put it on the page and they play it. And so began a 2-decade-long voyage of discovery with the symphony orchestra.
What you're saying, the whole idea of it being a work in progress seems to be the exact thing that sort of draws you, right? Anywhere where there's some uncharted territory seems to be a draw, a pull.
I have noticed that there's a certain schizophrenia here, that the composer dude is really almost unrelated to the drummer dude. The composer dude is this, a kindly soul, quiet, introspective, deep thinking. The drummer guy, look out, watch out. If he's carrying a bill, he might spill it on you. I don't actually do classical music. I'm more into the 20th century guys who are technically not even called classical. Your French guys, your Debussy, Ravel, they're, Wild Russians, Uncle Igor, my own almost namesake, Aaron Copland, John Adams, Philip Glass, Steve Reich, the granddaddy of modern music. I love all, what I have in common with that is the use of the orchestra as an instrument. I am not Verdi or Puccini or Mozart. That music has been beautifully made by the masters, but I am studying the 20th century composers. I love all their stuff. For orchestra, I come in here and I have my monitoring and I play back with the track and I turn the volume way down, no in-ear monitors. I have these little speakers over here on the other side of the room at like mid-volume. And the minute I get too loud, I lose the place. And so I'm trained, the pain of that trains me to not blow it, because the dynamic range of the orchestra is profound. It goes, and the dynamic range of a rock band is not so profound, but it is much louder. The dynamic range of a rock band is like 7 to 11. An orchestra achieves a mighty effect, a huge emotional delivery, a blow to the heart at a dynamic range of 1 to 5. Now, when you're in the concert hall, that 1 to 5 feels like the footsteps of God. So the first thing I have to learn is get my volume down. And there's a couple of advantages, there are a lot of advantages to that. First of all, the techniques, the drum has a much wider vocabulary at that volume. Little roughs, little drags, little ratamacues, little persnickety cool forms of expression on the drums. You hit the drum here and it sounds like that. Okay, all this vocabulary is available at low volume. The minute you're playing with a rock band, you got single stroke rolls and a backbeat. That's the only thing that's going to cut through. And so the vocabulary at this lower level is much wider, more cool stuff you can do that we'll read.
Can we talk a little bit about festivals? Because I'm guessing you are in the midst of an incredibly busy summer.
All these fun festivals, summer festivals, which are just about the people coming out of an evening, and Brahms is too good for them. And okay, maybe I qualify then. And so they persuaded me, why don't you take your orc chops and put your police arrangements together and make a show that a lot of people would be interested in seeing. Then at first I thought, oh, pshaw, I'm serious. I need to compose another concerto. But it did kind of, because I actually really kind of like those songs. And so I said yes to that. And a lot of people in a lot of cities and a lot of orchestras are very interested in the Police Deranged for Orchestra. I did make a promise to the people coming that I'm just going to play the hits. Okay, there's a couple of obscure ones that are hits with me personally. They're in there. Murder by Numbers was not one of our big hits, but it's just, sorry, one of our coolest tracks, and it deserves more attention. As far as my own compositions, there's only one, which isn't even a police track. It's the Equalizer television series. And by the way, it is going to be a heck of a darn show. The more I get into it, the more I realize, wow, because I did get a couple of my rock and roll chuckle buddies, Armand Sabaleka on bass and Rusty Anderson on guitar, who are just, Rusty's, his day job, non-COVID, is he's been Paul McCartney's guitarist for 20 years. And Armand Sabaleka, the Prince of Cameroon, is just the funkiest. So the rock element is fully covered, but there's only one way to replace Stingo, and that's with 3 soul sisters on the mic. And that is really very cool.
Well, we are so excited. We love having you here in a month or so.
Ah, shucks. Well, thank you. And send my best wishes to my good friends, the Cleveland Orchestra. We shall laugh together and play music together and burn down the building together.
That was Stewart Copeland. And if, like us, you can't get enough of this guy, we hope you'll catch a performance of Stewart Copeland's Police Deranged for Orchestra. In the meantime, we'll share a new Spotify playlist that Stewart put together just for us. It's called For Cleveland, and you can find it in the show notes for this episode.